Ladies and gentlemen, Center of Excellence in Safety Engineering and Analytics, IIT Kharagpur welcomes all the participants to the 9th weekend talk of Safety Engineering Management and Analytics. This program is being conducted under Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav under the Ministry of Culture, Government of India. So Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is an initiative of the Government of India to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of independence of progressive India and the glorious history of its people and achievements. The Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has inaugurated the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav by flagging off the Dandi March from Sabarmati Ashram on 12th of March 2021, and the celebration started exactly 75 weeks before our 75th anniversary of independence and will end on 15th of August 2023. So the Department of Higher Education, Government of India, has planned many of the activities under this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and this weekend talk series is one of them, conducted by IIT Kharagpur. So we start our weekend talk series with this wonderful shloka in Sanskrit. Asatama asat gamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya, which tells us and inspires us to go from ignorance to the truth, from darkness to the light, and from death to immortality. So with this, myself, Moon Mitra, the moderator of the session from Tata Steel, along with our moderators Sinjana, Sovik and Ashish from IIT Kharagpur, welcome you heartily to this session. So we would now welcome our Chairman COE SEA, Professor J. Maiti, Professor Obi Krishna, the convener of the weekend talk series, and Dr. Ashish Trivedi, our expert speaker for the session today. It is said that health is like money. We never have a true idea of its value until we lose it. Today's session, the topic of today's session is wellness at workplace, including COVID-19 challenges. And Dr. Ashish Trivedi is a qualified occupational health physician and certified corporate wellness specialist with more than 20 years of experience that includes in academics as well as in workplace occupational health and wellness services. He is currently working as an occupational health physician at the Ministry of Health, Brunei Darussalam, for more than 5 years. He is having 11 publications and is also a member of national, international professional organizations like the Society of Occupational Medicine UK, International Commission on Occupational Health, American Industrial Hygiene Association, and Human Factors and Ergonomic Society of Malaysia. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are blessed today to have such an expert speaker with us. I now request Professor J. Maiti, our Chairman of Center of Excellence, IIT Kharagpur, to formally welcome our expert speaker. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mom. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. We are really privileged to have Dr. Ashish A. Trivedi today, who is doctor by profession and practicing wellness and occupational health in different, I think in different organizations. I have seen him in Tata Steel also earlier. So when we are talking about the wellness in workplace as well as COVID-19 challenges, a doctor is probably the best person who can enlighten us under this situation, current pandemic situation. How can we go forward? I'm sure that the participants today will be extremely benefited with the speech of Dr. Ashish Trivedi, titled Wellness at Workplace, including COVID-19 Challenges. Professor Trivedi, we welcome you. Dr. Trivedi, we welcome you for this weekend series, and we are eagerly waiting to listen from you today. And COE in Safety Engineering and Analytics is doing this weekend talk, and this is the 9th week. And we are extremely thankful to you for your kind support. And with this brief note, I request you to give your presentation. Thank you, Professor Dr. Trivedi.
I'll be talking on wellness at workplace, including COVID-19 challenges. Topic will be covering basics of occupational health, workplace wellness, and some facts about COVID-19 and workplace occupational health involvement in COVID-19. So this will be the overview. Total, I have almost 40 slides, and I hope I will be able to complete it within the allotted time limit. I will be covering basics of occupational health, global OHS statistic, WHO healthy workplace model, basics of workplace wellness, and COVID-19 and the workplace. So starting with the basics, what is occupational health? In 1950, the first joint ILO WHO committee on occupational health adopted a very comprehensive definition of occupational health, which is a promotion and maintenance of highest degree of physical, mental, and social well-being of all the workers, prevention among workers from departure of health caused by their working condition, and fitting the worker to the fitting the workplace to the worker, and not forcing the worker to fit to the workplace. Very comprehensive definition, and it can be divided into three parts. The middle portion is the core occupational health, which includes the prevention and protection of workers against the workplace hazards. The first part is more like a wellness. It's promotion and maintenance of highest degree of physical, mental, and social well-being. And the last part is more related to...
Dr. Trivedi, the slide is not moving. Then your next slide.
No, it's still on slide number 1, yeah.
Okay, no problem.
And the last part is more related to ergonomics, fitting the workplace to the worker. That fit will be physical, physiological, and psychological. Now, wellness is integral part of the definition of occupational health, where the first portion is promotion and maintenance of health and improve the workability of a working population. Occupational health, to provide a comprehensive occupational health, we need a team approach that includes specialties in occupational health, industrial safety, industrial hygiene, toxicology, ergonomics, and occupational psychology. In today's scenario, we can also include a wellness specialist as well as an infectious disease specialist in view of COVID-19 since last year. Why we need occupational health services? So this is the statistics which support occupational health services at the workplace. According to ILO, almost 2.8 million people are losing their life because of either work-related injury or illness. That makes more than 7,000 deaths a day. Surprisingly, 86% of these deaths are due to work-related illnesses, and 14% deaths are due to work-related injury. Over and above these fatalities, there are more than 370 million non-fatal work injuries every year, more than 150 million of work-related diseases every year, and collectively it leads to a lot of socio-economical damage to the country, to the institute, to the families. What are the causes of this work-related death? If we see, the work-related circulatory disease are the commonest cause of workplace fatalities, followed by occupational cancers, followed by respiratory diseases, followed by workplace accidents. Now, if we see region-wise, there are some variations where some of the region, occupational cancer are the leading cause of death due to occupational exposure, and other countries, occupational circulatory disease or occupational cardiovascular disease are the leading cause of death. If we see the pattern of occupational diseases in 2018-19, more than 80% of the reported cases of occupational diseases were either a psychosocial hazard at workplace or musculoskeletal disorder, that is a musculoskeletal, that is an ergonomic hazard at the workplace. Similarly, if we see the pattern of work-related illnesses reported in Singapore from 2009 to 2018, the noise-induced hearing loss, was the leading occupational disease reported to Workplace Safety and Health Council Singapore, but it shows gradual decline and work-related musculoskeletal disorders are on rise. So if we see the work-related diseases also, the psychosocial and ergonomical hazard are the dominant hazard currently at the workplace, and that can also be covered through a good wellness program. Coming to a healthy workplace model by WHO, this was given in 2010, which includes company ethics and value at the center of the model, involvement of the management and workers. So it includes both management and worker, and it follow a continuous improvement process and the area of action will be in the 4 regions, that is physical work environment, psychosocial work environment, personal health resources, and community involvement. Now, physical work environment here means all the traditional occupational health hazards that includes physical, chemical, biological, mechanical, and ergonomical hazards at the workplace. In view of high prevalence, psychosocial hazards are given a specific focus, and psychosocial work environment is a special focus provided in the healthy workplace model by WHO. Personal health resources are the health promotion activities at the workplace, which is very related to the wellness programs at the workplace, where the workplace provides support to the workers for adopting healthy lifestyle and improve their health status. And enterprise community involvement is the extension of workplace health services to the community, and that makes overall improvement in the health status of the employees. Now, adopting a WHO healthy workplace model, what is the advantage? First is for business ethics, any business should not cause any harm. Second is legal environment. Most of the occupational health and safety is a legal requirement in most of the countries, and by adopting healthy workplace model, the legal compliance is fulfilled. And the most important part is a business case, because unhealthy and unsafe workplaces lead to various accidents, injuries, and various direct and indirect costs related to that, and ultimately leads to a business failure. So going for a healthy workplace is actually a good health is a good business. Now, why workplace wellness and what is workplace wellness? We are more than 7 billion people on this world, on this earth, and almost 50% are working somewhere, either in an organized sector or unorganized sector, self-employed. And workplace provides us a good opportunity where the group health initiatives can be taken up, and that can improve the health status of the workers. Similarly, like we adopt school health services, where a group health initiatives are directed toward the school students, and workplace provides a similar opportunity to develop the group health measures for improving the health of the workers. So what is workplace wellness or workplace well-being? The Global Wellness Institute defines workplace wellness as any workplace health promotion activity or organizational policy designed to support healthy behaviors among employees to improve their health outcomes. It is also known as corporate well-being, and it consists like any activity that includes on-site health education, wellness communications, health screening, any special programs like weight loss, stress management, or smoking cessation program, fitness program, or health club membership or gym membership, and healthy food options and company wellness competitions. Now, what should be directed in our workplace wellness program? So what are the leading cause of death today? So ischemic heart disease, that include heart attack, cerebrovascular disease, that is stroke, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lower respiratory infection are the leading cause of death. And out of 4 I mentioned, 3 are, we call them non-communicable diseases. Now, non-communicable diseases are responsible for more than 70% of the deaths today. And for non-communicable disease, there are modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors. Out of that, all modifiable risk factors can be targeted as a part of our wellness program. So in 2019, what are the leading risk factors for death? And that presented tobacco use, high blood pressure, unhealthy dietary intake, air pollution, high blood sugar, high BMI, and high cholesterol are some of the leading risk factors leading to death in male in 2019. It also includes occupational risk factors at the 12th position. So occupational risk factors are also 12th leading cause of death in the world. What is the advantage of wellness program? There was a famous publication in 2020 in Harvard Business Review, which mentioned a highest return of 6 to 1. Every $1 spent, there was a return of $6, and that high return was given by a wellness program implemented at the workplace. However, that study was later, many other studies identified not a very promising results on return on investment by implementing the workplace health program. And recent systemic review published concluded that the wellness program does not provide any positive return on investment within first few years of its initiation. But if we don't think only the monetary returns, and if we think on the value of investment, the return is very high. Like improve morale of the worker, that increase their productivity, that decreases the employee turnover, and those cost reduction are much higher than actually when we are looking for financial return on healthcare costs and insurance claims in the form of return on investment. So value of investment for a wellness workplace program are much higher than actual return on investment. Recent a study done by International Social Security Association, ISA, in 2010. This study was done actually on implementing preventive occupational safety and health services at the workplace, and what was the return provided. The study was conducted among 300 companies in 15 countries, and the average return on prevention found was 2.2 on every dollar spent. So prevention is provides always more return than the cure. Now coming to the COVID-19 and the impact on the workplace. Everyone knows on end of the 2019, China reported a cluster of cases with pneumonia of unknown cause to WHO. On 7 January, the virus was identified. On 13 January 2020, first case was reported outside China, that was in Thailand. 38 January, WHO declared the global health emergency. And on 11th March, WHO declared the COVID-19 as a pandemic. And since then, still the life are disturbed because of the COVID-19. At some or other stage, everyone is affected by this pandemic. The routes of transmission are usually airborne droplet nuclei, and contact transmission are the main routes of the transmission of the disease. If we go through the statistic, almost 200,000 million cases globally, more than 4 million deaths globally. In India, more than 31 million cases and more than 400,000 deaths in India. And if I go through the Brunei statistic, there are more than 300 confirmed cases and 3 deaths. In Brunei, the last local transmission was evident on 6 May, and after that, only 141 local cases, locally transmitted cases were there, and after 6 May, all cases are imported from outside. So there are 170 imported cases and 141 local transmitted cases in Brunei. Now, what is the impact or how workplace can promote the COVID-19 transmission? Some of the occupations are at high risk for COVID-19 transmission, like healthcare workers who are directly dealing with the cases and are at high risk of the transmission. Some other occupations which involves direct facing to the community or dealing with the people, and they are at high risk for COVID-19 transmission, includes the teacher, retail worker, food and hospitality workers, cleaning and domestic workers, transport worker, driver and airline staff, emergency police staff, and some of the work settings like indoor, crowded and poorly ventilated workplaces promotes transmission of COVID-19. Areas where the people are gathering, like eating area, canteen, during transportation, and the shared accommodation are the places which promotes transmission of COVID-19 among the workers. The shared accommodation, the Singapore is the best example, where up to first week of May, out of more than 20,000 cases, more than 85% cases were among the migrant dormitory workers who were living in a shared accommodation, almost 6 to 8 workers living in a same room, and that drove the COVID-19 pandemic in middle time, in April and May 2020 in Singapore. How occupational health is involved in COVID-19. The first task was to protect the healthcare worker. So to protect the frontline worker. Second most important is to prevent workplace transmission. And the third most important task was return to work assessment and allowing return to work after post-COVID-19 lockdowns. In view of the COVID-19 pandemic, the theme for World Day for Safety and Health at Work 2020 was also revised from its original planned theme on workplace violence and harassment to Safety and Health at Work is the center of COVID-19 pandemic response, not only to protect life, but to ensure business continuity. Now, among healthcare workers, are the occupation most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And during the recent World Health Assembly, the opening remark of Director General of WHO mentioned that almost 115,000 of healthcare workers have lost their life. Health and care workers have lost their life because of the COVID-19 while serving for others. In Brunei, our main task, our involvement was mainly in protection of healthcare workers, and for that we conducted the respiratory fit testing since January. Since the WHO declared the global health emergency, we started our preparedness for COVID-19 among healthcare workers that included respiratory fit testing, and from January, almost 74% of healthcare workers were covered up to July 2020. PPE awareness were conducted among 65%, COVID-19 awareness session for 41% of healthcare workers, and the Ministry of Health also had a flu vaccination drive in February and March 2020. The basic aim was just to avoid the double burden of cases with COVID-19 and influenza. After the first case reported in Brunei on March 9, we started the active surveillance of healthcare workers, those who are exposed to COVID-19 cases at work or away from work. all healthcare workers returning back to Brunei from overseas, and all healthcare workers who develop any influenza-like symptoms. So those were our targets, and this active screening of those healthcare workers were started at the Occupational Health Division in Brunei. Total up to December, more than 800 workers were covered. There was parallel active surveillance going on among the frontliners who were dealing with the COVID-19 cases at the isolation center. So they were undergoing weekly surveillance swab for COVID-19. Parallelly, this surveillance was done for exposed worker or returning from overseas, healthcare worker returning from overseas, or healthcare worker with symptoms. But till date, there are no healthcare worker in Brunei found positive for COVID-19. What are the workplace prevention measures in general? So how we can prevent transmission of COVID-19 at workplace? So that includes hygiene and respiratory etiquette, physical distancing, reduce the work-related travel, regular cleaning and disinfection of the work surfaces, risk communication, training and awareness, management of people with COVID-19 or COVID-19 related symptoms and their contacts, health screening, which may include symptom screening as well as the temperature screening at the entry and exit, and encourage the vaccination for company employees. For workplace risk assessment, risk categories can be low, medium, and high. All jobs that includes that do not require a frequent close contact with public or co-worker, and that do not require contact with suspected or confirmed cases of COVID-19 can be categorized as low risk exposure. Job that includes frequent contact with public or co-worker but do not require contact with the person known to be or suspected of having COVID-19 are medium risk exposure, and all jobs that require contact with confirmed or suspected cases of COVID-19 are categorized as high risk exposure. So these are the basic risk categorization for COVID-19 workplace risk assessment. Now, for post-lockdown return to work, ILO has given a 10-step guideline that include setting up a team to plan the return to work post-COVID-19 lockdowns based on risk assessment to decide who will return and how they will return, definitely in a phased manner, to adopt engineering measures and administrative measures to prevent COVID-19 transmission at the workplace, which includes mostly the modifying the workplace for physical distancing, to adopt cleaning and disinfectant measure for regular cleaning, and that will deal with the surface contact transmission related of COVID-19, to promote personal hygiene measures that will deal with the contact as well as the airborne transmission of COVID-19, provision of PPE based on risk assessment, health surveillance of the workers, maybe symptom surveillance and temperature screening, and also consider the psychosocial risk associated, and to provide support to the worker, review the emergency evacuation plan as the workplace are modified and there may be some changes done to accommodate physical distancing, and the emergency evacuation plan should be modified also accordingly, and continuously review the updated guidelines and change accordingly, make the changes at the workplace accordingly. For individual risk assessment, now overall risk assessment include not only the workplace risk but also individual risk, because the people with underlying diseases and people above age of 60 are considered as high risk for COVID-19, And overall risk assessment include not only the workplace risk factor, but also the individual risk factor. So risk assessment should be done based on workplace risk factor as well as the individual risk factor, and that gives the overall risk, and the return to work advice should be based on the overall risk to the person. What are the control measures? So if we consider the hazard elimination, continue working remotely. So work from home is the best option. You are not exposed to COVID-19 at the workplace, but that is not possible in all the cases. So then we come to the next level of prevention, that is engineering control. Just adjust the workplace, redesign and modify the workplace to manage the physical distancing part. Next comes the administrative control, where hand hygiene measures, shift scheduling, the job rotations are planned to. First thing is to manage the phase return to work, and all the staff should not be at the workplace at the same time. So accordingly, the shift schedule should be modified, and that comes under the administrative control. And last but not the least are the PPEs, or group protective equipment or personal protective equipment, that should be provided based on the risk assessment. Now, working from home was another challenge during COVID-19 time. And according to studies in UK and USA, almost 20% of the workforce work for a long time from home, and almost 50 to 70% work from home at some stage of the pandemic. Now, while working from home, there are certain challenges and difficulties, like work equipment, workspace at the home are not as per standard like they are at the workplace. Similarly, there is a lack of communication and lack of support. So in case of need or trouble, there are no colleagues available or no supervisor available to discuss with. At home, there will be juggling responsibilities from household responsibility and work responsibility, and this will also impact the working hour and work and home routine. Most affected are the female people living alone and the new starters who need the most support, and that will also impact the well-being of the person while working from home. These are some examples of work from home workstations, and you can see there are no standard workstations or no standard work environment available, and this should be tackled as a part of extending the health and wellness services to the home during the work from home task. So challenges for work from home are the lone working without supervision. So no support is available to the person, and that can be tackled with keeping in touch with the workers while working from home and ensure a regular contact. While working with display screen unit, if the person is working from home for a long time, workstation assessment at the home should be conducted. And if not possible, at least education of the employee for own basic assessment should be done. Workers should also be trained for working with proper ergonomics practices. Third part is the stress, not being in touch with colleagues, no proper supervision, and that may lead to the stress. And to tackle this, the worker should be in direct contact while working from home. These red flags for stress should be recognized, and in case they should report to any emergency point of contact so people can get help from there. Wellness measures we can adopt while working from home are same like setting up the workplace. Workers should be trained for that, to set up their own workstation and to adopt the ergonomic work practices, to create the right environment that includes a right temperature, right lighting, and the workstation for while working from home, and to stay mentally fit, that includes a good rest, good time for recreation, good time for physical activity, and be in touch with the colleagues and supervisor. So And the last portion of my lecture will be COVID-19 vaccination. Like, consider the COVID-19 vaccination option for the employees. There may be, if possible, on site at the workplace, at the occupational health clinic. If not possible, then employer run temporary vaccination clinics or mobile vaccination clinics. But in some countries, the government has restricted the vaccination plans. So in that case, tie up with the healthcare facility and encourage vaccination among the workers. Now, to encourage vaccination, the awareness for vaccination is very important. The company management should be the role model for vaccination. The workers should be communicated about the advantage of vaccination for themselves, their family, co-workers, and community, and to provide up-to-date information regarding effectiveness, benefit, safety, and effectiveness of the vaccines, and make visible the decision of getting vaccinated and celebrate it. So that will reduce the vaccine hesitancy among the employees and promote the vaccination for all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wonderfully explained, sir, to this journey of COVID-19 prevention. So I now hand over the session to our co-moderators, Sinjana, Souvik, and Ashish, for taking up the questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So thank you, sir, for this high informative talk on several aspects of improving wellness at the workplace. And I am very fortunate to listen from you, sir. Sir, we have received many questions in the chat box. So I am taking some of them. Like, sir, one question is there any relationship between the physical workplace environment and the psychosocial well-being of the employees? Yes, sir.
Psychosocial well-being can be affected by any hazardous workplace. So any hazard at the workplace, worker will be under stress definitely. So that any hazardous workplace will affect the psychological well-being of the employee.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, sir, the second question is, what should we do when we open the offices after COVID-19 pandemic? Is there any methodology?
There will be national guidelines available what to do for after opening up. So while returning to work, what should be done? There are guidelines available nationally. If national guidelines are not available, then you can go through any international agency guideline. Even ILO has a guideline. ACGIH has a guideline. BOHS has a guideline. So many international guidelines will be available which can guide you for a very systematic approach for return to work after COVID-19 lockdown.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, sir, another participant is asking that how to encourage the employees to follow COVID-19 precautions.
Awareness is the most important. So in the terms employees can understand and create more and more awareness will improve their participation, not only in the public health measures, but also in the vaccination program.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I will take the last question, sir. So it is telling that how will the change in the dynamics of workplace due to COVID-19 have an impact on the psychosocial well-being of employees?
Any change comes with the anxiety. So any change will lead to some kind of anxiety, and that needs a lot of support from management, supervisor, and colleagues. So change will always lead to some psychosocial effect. Other aspects of COVID-19 are factors which also add to the psychosocial impact, and that can be tackled through a good support from the company management, supervisors, and colleagues.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for the explanation. Now I would like to hand over the session to Mom Mitra ma'am.
Thank you, Souvik. Sir, I have a question. Actually, sir, steel industries like Tata Steel also faced a lot of challenges during this, and we also implemented a lot of concepts like pod concept and all for mitigating this. So my question to you is, sir, any digital interventions, deployed there, sir, for this prevention of COVID-19? Any digital intervention?
Digital intervention, what I am aware is not for control, but here for during the quarantine time, to the digital monitoring was done for COVID-19 or quarantine people. So they were monitored digitally during their home quarantine stage. So any break will be identified immediately. But for prevention, I am not sure. I have not come across any digital measures.
So, I mean, was it through biometric system or, I mean, what exactly digital interventions is?
It was a tracker. Initially, they had a separate tracker, and then it was linked to the app in a mobile. And they were tracking all the home quarantine cases through a mobile tracker or a electronic tracker.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. Sir, I'll now hand over the session to Professor Obi Krishna to propose formal vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Before that, Professor Krishna, I think that some more questions are there. I just want to just read one of them, and if we can discuss one or two more questions. What is the ideal best way for an organization to deal with pandemic without consuming lot of resources? This is one question from the participants. Dr. Trivedi. Yeah.
Mr. Andrew Page is also there. Later, Dr. Ashish, you remember Andrew Page?
Yes, sir.
I think Andrew Page will also throw some light. He's in London, near London now. Yeah, come on, Dr. Ashish.
Preventing the pandemic or tackling the workplace during pandemic, yes. If any specific local guideline available, follow the guideline. The other national, international guidelines are available, which can guide for dealing of pandemic at the workplace. The measures mainly include the hygiene, physical distance, and risk assessment based return to work. So that all these are not very costly interventions, except any workplace modification required just to encourage physical distancing. Otherwise, hand hygiene or training or cleaning of the surface or workplace disinfection are not very costly measures to prevent the pandemic at the workplace, except the workplace modification if required.
Okay, thank you so much. So then another question I am finding here that people are asking about ergonomic risk factor at workplace. Perhaps that I mean under this COVID-19 challenges, is there any kind of changes in the ergonomic risk calculation or risk assessment or treatment?
Ergonomics risk assessment methods remains the same for all purpose. Only thing is, yes, because the workstations are changed, people are working from home, so risk assessment should be conducted one more time, and if risks are found high, the changes, the workplace should be modified or risk should be managed.
So that means the home is now workplace. So that's another question. Related question is that is the pandemic creating more ergonomic illness as the work from home is going on?
If the work from home is going on and workstation is not ideal, so ideal workstation, either we can train the employees to do the self-assessment and then modify their workplace as an ergonomic workplace, or if required and the workplace home is required for a long time, then the specialized help should be provided by the management to do assessment and do the changes if required.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Trivedi. I just gone through the chat box and I found these few questions. There are a few more questions.
Andrew Page, how are you?
Some are like this.
And Andrew Page, you are muted. How are you? Okay, okay. Mhm. A beautiful, very nice talk, Dr. Ashish Trivedi. See, I also worked in this field. The whole problem is if some worker, somebody, or some officer, anybody reports MSD, first of all, they don't want to report MSD. The moment it is reported MSD, people treat him as an unfit person. It is attributed to his fitness. It is never attributed to the workplace. If somebody has got blood pressure, somebody has got cholesterol, or somebody has got sugar, somebody has, people refuse to attribute to the workplaces. Now, slowly, people are attributing to the workplace activities. It is coming up. So, the huge number of deaths in this field is happening because of this. Second, you come up with very right statistics. Huge number of fatalities happen because of the diseases than the injuries. Why organizations tolerate? Because these diseases do not happen immediately, whereas injuries happen in front of you immediately. Hence, the people, you see, I remember one of the very senior executive who retired from organization. He says, now I have this work-related disease. He's a very senior person in the organization. Then I said, what did you do while you are working in the organization? You are supposed to lead the whole organization, whereas you yourself is got affected because people do not want to care for the health. Caring for the health means people talk something criminal, something bad. If a person is talking too much about health, either work-related health or individual health, it is not seen positively. This is slowly coming up. I remember. I'll talk about Dr. Trivedi's contributions in Tata Steel little later. I want to ask you one or two questions, Dr. Ashish. You talked about workplace risk, individual risk. Is there any models available on this? Taking these two risks, how do you take? How do you evaluate?
The risk assessment is done like we do the routine risk assessment for any safety hazard. We consider the risk associated, like the person is working, the work pattern of the person is facing the customers, or like working in a health sector or working in a bank. So the person will be constantly in contact with the general population. So this comes under the medium to high risk category. But similarly, like we do other risk assessment, the provision of PPEs, and we go through the other areas where the person can get the infection. So it starts from the transportation. What transportation person is using, public or private? So if private, the risk is less. Public, the risk is high. That can be managed with proper PPE. Coming to the entry exit, where there can be a crowd and the risk of transmission are higher. Coming to the workplace disinfection practices, coming to the physical distancing patterns. So if that we can manage, the risk associated with that part will be less. But if that cannot be managed, then it should be covered up with PPE. Coming to the toilets and canteen use, if the shifts are planned properly, and that will reduce rush at the toilet facility and the canteens, then those risk categories will be lower. Now, these are the company-based risk we assess. Similarly, the individual risk should be assessed, like person above 60 considered as high risk for the disease. Similarly, those who have pre-existing morbidities are considered as at high risk. So while overall, when we decide the risk pattern of a person, then all those should be taken into account, and then it comes the overall risk, and based on that, the control measures should be implemented. That includes, like, if that person comes under medium to high risk category, the best choice will be better to work from home. So that will be total hazard elimination. But if not possible, then the administrative and PPE control measures will be implemented to reduce the risk of that person. So this individual risk assessment should be conducted for individual who is returning to work from home.
Nice, Dr. Ashish. One more thing which you have said, the 6:1 returns due to wellness programs. I don't feel any organization, any progressive organization accept it.
That article was very much criticized. That was 2010 publication, and that was criticized. There are many studies done, and many did not give any positive return on investment for workplace wellness program. And then the concept of value of investment came into practice. It is not only monetary result, but there are many other advantages of improved moral, improve productivity, and improved employee retention and less turnover. So these are the indirect benefits we are getting through wellness program.
But Dr. Ashish, I believe I agree with 6:1 returns, because having worked in Tata Steel in these wellness at workplaces, I've seen the results. Really, the results are of this nature only. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be knowing, you may not be knowing, Dr. Ashish Trivedi. One person I've seen who is very strong in academics, very strong in medical practices as a medical officer. When I was there in Tata Steel, he was there. And Tata Steel was really blessed to have a medical practitioner like him. And he is one of the, he is the backbone, or he is one of the initiators of the wellness at workplace schemes in Tata Steel, which Tata Steel employees always acknowledge to him. And now you see, Tata Steel wellness programs are very well matured, and that's all attributed to great people like Dr. Ashish Trivedi, who worked there. And this value of investment, the concept which you have told, Dr. Ashish, is very, very interesting. Now I think the IITs should look into publishing papers on value of investment for wellness at workplaces. Definitely, the COE, Center of Excellence in Safety Engineering and Analytics, it is a good input to work in this and come out with many things. And during Ashish Trivedi's time, Tata Steel has come up with the health index,